Hello, everybody. My name is Amelia Vogler. I'm a grounding and energy medicine specialist and your host in the Energy Magazine exclusive interview series. Today, I am so excited to have Angela Wright with us as our guest. Angela is a board certified holistic nurse. She's a spiritual life coach. She's a Feng Shui Consultant. She's certified in Hopo, and I can never say it right. Maybe you should just say it for us.
Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, see, language was never my thing, but it's a practice of forgiveness and reconciliation out of the Hawaiian tradition. She's trained in heart imagery. She's a Breatharian healing practitioner, and she's a minister. Angela has decades of experience with energy medicine and astrology, and she typically works with and is enthusiastic about working with core wounding, energies of shame, low self-esteem, stuck energies and traumas. So Angela, welcome. I'm so happy to get to talk with you today.
Thank you. And I'm so happy to talk to you.
Well, I'm so curious because you were in your introduction. I shared that you really like working with shame and low self-esteem and traumas, and I'm curious if you have seen or experienced what those patterns look like in the energy system. You have such a cool scope of practice, so I'd love to know a little more about those energies.
Sure. Well, most of us have some shame or some trauma to our self-esteem. And these frequently come up from our core wounds from birth to 2 or 3 years old. We usually have something by then, some deep wound from an experience with a caregiver or something similar. And what those can look like, it's different for everyone. But what it can look like is you are being yourself as an innocent child, and someone that you look up to as an all-knowing adult, basically as a god or goddess in your point of view of the world, who knows everything and does no wrong. They turn on you and they, because of their own core woundings, they do or say things that are very damaging to our self-esteem. And actually, the fracture that it causes is actually a fracture that we experience in the moment as fracturing us from God. Because we're looking at this person, maybe it's a mother or father, and in our eyes as this young child, they are like a god to us. And when they turn on us and say or do something that's very wounding, we feel this separation. We feel like, oh, God doesn't love me. God doesn't support me. God is abandoning me right now in this moment. And when we do things like that, it creates an agreement or a contract from our perspective where, okay, now I get it. To protect myself, my ego wants to keep me safe. So my ego is going to make this agreement that, okay, you are not going to count on God anymore. Mm-hmm. That is closed off to you now. So you'll count on yourself and you'll try extra hard to be loved. You'll go above and beyond just for some meager little bit of love. And we'll see that then following that experience, that new program that we pick up sends out into the universe. Yeah, this is the experience I'm looking for because this is what I believe now. Mm-hmm. And this is really our ego trying to protect us, like I said, because its job is to keep us alive. Its job is not for us to gain this higher awareness. That's another part of us. So, but it's kind of beautiful because this wound and this agreement with our ego allows us the opportunity when the time is right and when we're willing to do the work to have this very profound healing experience. And whatever was obstructed energetically in that moment, maybe it's a feeling of support from God. You know, that blockage then opens up, and we can have all that healing, that beautiful flow of energy back, and that knowledge that God never left us. You know, that was just our perception. God has always been there. You know, you can call it source, you can call it whatever you want, but this is your creator who loves you, never left, and has been waiting for this moment for you to, you know, have this awareness and get it and realize, yeah, this connection is still right here, better than ever. And it just is so wonderful to experience healing myself and to help anyone else heal. I've always done this kind of work for my friends, for, you know, just for many years, in personal relationships, just working through these kinds of things. And because of my own experiences, it just allows me to bear witness and give people a safe space just to come to their own realizations about it.
Well, Angela, that when you say fracturing, you know, when you talk about those kind of original fractures in the energy system, how do you know that a fracture's there? What clue do you get from your clients when you're assessing their energy field or working on that initial assessment? How do these show up for you?
You know, for me, it's an intuitive understanding. I don't see these things like in colors, not usually anyway, but sometimes I pick up from someone. I mean, even at the grocery store, I can walk next to someone and pick up some things that are happening in their life or have happened to them in the past. So it's just a gift that I have. And I think, like I said, because I've gone through so much work myself, it just allows it to become not quite second nature, but something that if I work a little bit at it, I can hear. You know, it's like, I always called it like whispers from the void. You know, I can just kind of pick up on what's going on.
Oh, that's
And, you know, I just talk to my client and or my friend or whoever it is, and if it resonates with them, then yes, you know. If someone, if any coach, someone is going to says something and that doesn't resonate and doesn't feel true, then I wouldn't move forward with that at all.
I think
You know,
that's
you
good advice, you know, to get
yeah.
to always help your client or your, you know, whoever you're working with at that time, friend, client, or otherwise, to feel empowered in their journey. So you mentioned that in the coaching relationship, and you're a spiritual coach. So maybe it would be wonderful if you shared a little bit about what a spiritual coach does, a spiritual life coach. It's sort of a new to me, it's a new label for spiritual coaching or coaching. So I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, it's definitely an umbrella term, and I think it's different for every coach. And a lot of coaches, they'll give you a free consultation or just chat on the phone if you have questions about anything like that, about if they feel like they can work with what your issues are that you want to work on. For me, I use techniques related to shamanism, related to dreaming as a spiritual practice, various techniques to work out relationship obstructions, especially with, you know, these core relationships that we have with people growing up. Because, and I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I don't analyze people. It's not my job, and that's outside of my scope. But when we just go back and do some guided meditations, for example, go into our heart and interact from a safe place, it's very empowering, because we can see, for example, from the heart, that's a unified field. So there's no polarity there, there's no duality. And when you go to the heart for meditation or for spiritual work, you're not going to run into anything that isn't positive and helpful. If you're running into some shadowy situation in a meditation, you're definitely not in your heart space. So I do work with shamanic practices, and like I said, intuitive understanding, and just taking people to where these beliefs that they have come from that they're working on. For example, someone might have a belief that they can't make more than a certain amount of money. And really, this is just a thought that they have been thinking repeatedly for a long time. But it's not really based in truth, because money is energy, and there's no lack of energy in the universe. There's no finite amount of energy. Or, someone might want to work on relationships, and they see this pattern, I always have a relationship that turns out this way, it starts out great, they're great, and then they always end up the same. It's the same problem over and over. Well, that isn't really, the partner's problems, because the denomination, the common denominator between all these relationships is the person who is having them. And it's what is in their program that they're sending into the matrix. Everywhere they go, they're resonating at this point that says, I'm going to have this experience again. And no matter how hard they work on it on a conscious level, if they're not doing the subconscious work, they're working against themselves all the time. So we don't realize, we can't remember a lot of times these core woundings. And it's nice to work with someone who can be a facilitator and a guide, and just kind of take you gently back to that place, that time, so that you can observe for yourself what happened. How was your energy split off? Get that energy back. Take that inner child. We all have these inner children who've been through so much, and if we haven't done the work to heal them, they're just out there waiting to be healed. Basically, they're in our past in some moment in time, waiting for us. So I do a lot of inner child work. Even in my relationship with my own children, I heal my own inner child. When you're playing with your children and loving them unconditionally for who they are, you're doing the greatest stuff, because that's healing for all of us when you're doing something like that.
Yeah. Angela, I love that moment when you were talking about the heart, and that it doesn't have polarity to it, and it's sort of that open relational vehicle for us to be fully present with, one with the all. And I'm just curious, because sometimes we hear people talking about their heart chakra being somewhat compromised or not open and flowing. So what do you think the relationship between having your heart fully open versus or a little closed or compromised in the chakra expression and the way it flows energy, and this sense of being kind of more in your shadow thoughts? Like, I think I read somewhere, maybe it was on your website, that you work with the difference between fear thinking and heart thinking. And so I'm curious if that has any space here, or if you have any ideas of the relationship between the way our heart chakra brings energy through it and where we might be in heart versus something else.
Yeah, that's a great question. And these are huge concepts that are kind of hard to talk about sometimes, just to find the right words.
Yeah.
But our heart, being our fourth out of the standard 7 chakra system that most people are familiar with, it's the place of balance. You know, we have these lower chakras that are concerned with survival, and a lot of people are working from them. You know, they're working from more carnal, primal desires. But people want to work from their heart. You know, they want to go and they want to heal the past. And they do feel a lot of times very damaged and like, well, I don't know, you know, I don't feel like my heart is right. There's no way it could be open. I've been through so much. But a really strong thing to do is to set the intention. You know, you can set the intention when you wake up. You can set the intention every night before bed. That even in your dream life, you can be working toward healing your heart. And affirm it. You know, this is you. This is your energy body. You're here on your quest, your mission, dealing with your contracts, your relationship with God. And where God is, there cannot be fear. You know, we read that in many famous texts. God is love and this beautiful flow of energy. God loves you more than anybody whose love you are aware of. Like, it's so much more huge than that. And when we fear something, we are blocking that off. And it's like a fear we might have, let's say a fear of the future. When you say, okay, I'm not happy with my job. I want to take the leap and do something else, but I have this fear. I'm afraid I'm going to become homeless and not be able to pay my bills. That fear is really your ego convincing your left logical mind to get really active and to keep you pulled out of your right brain or your heart and to basically micromanage God. It's saying, you know, that money can only come to you a certain way from certain people, and that you know best how that's going to happen. Well, we don't know best. What we need to do really is learn to trust like innocent children. And this, you know, it always goes back to our inner children. That work needs to be done, in my opinion, because that's the healing where we can go back. We can do a guided meditation, for example, go back to a time of wounding, interact with your inner child in a safe way, and let her know or let him know that you're there for them now. You know, you're the adult. They couldn't defend themselves with whatever happened. You know, they're an innocent child. Of course, they couldn't protect themselves. But now you can say to them, you know, I'm here now. I can protect you. I can protect myself. If someone tries to step over a boundary with me, I can say, stop. You cannot treat me that way. I don't have relationships with people who treat me that way. I can do those things now, and you couldn't. You say to your child, you know, and with their permission, you can take that energy of them and put it in your heart, and you bring them home to your heart. And this creates so much healing. It mends that fracture. And usually there are several different scenarios that need to be gone through. But you bring back this piece of this child, and you know, you might even ask them, you know, what do you want me to do? Like, what would you like to do? They might want you to go out for ice cream. They might want you to go roller skating or ride your bike, because that's what they wanted to do when they were, you know, in the moment. So we nurture our inner child by doing those things, by really, if you make them a promise, you know, you keep that promise. And you approach life in a more fun, more innocent way. Spend more time in nature. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And, you know, you heal it. You're healing now and you're healing then, because time really is not linear. It's actually really all stacked up. It's just a bunch of now moments stacked on top of each other.
Well, Angela, I have another question about that next stage of honoring the wishes or creating those new agreements with your inner child. You know,
Yeah,
what if you were in an area where you really couldn't go roller skating, or, you know, you couldn't in some ways keep the literal agreements? So what would you have people do? Would you have them kind of imagine doing that, or ask again for something that feels more in in
totally.
everyday
Yeah, you can just lie down, go into your heart space. Yeah, you can create a situation in your heart space. You can create a garden there to walk with your inner child. Maybe there's a pond. I don't know, maybe they want to go fishing, maybe they want to go swimming. You can create rooms there. It's all based on your imagination and your love for yourself, you know, what you want to create, what you want to share and experience. It's a totally safe place. And you can go there anytime, except if you're, you know, driving a car or operating heavy machinery or something.
Yeah. So I love that, Angela, that you're, you know, that what you're offering is that heart portal to the imaginal realm, and that the imaginal realm holding all possibility for all healing, doesn't matter what time, what conditions. If you're cold, you can manifest the biggest, fluffiest coat ever. And so I just love that you allow people the permission. And I would imagine, is that something in that spiritual coaching model that comes up a lot, like kind of in some ways giving people permission to open the door to what our adult thoughts might limit us through? Or are there other, what are a few other techniques that you use in your coaching to help people access that limitless place?
Yeah, it's a huge part is giving ourselves permission or even asking permission from our early caregivers
Mhm.
and imagining whether you just set up a pillow and you're speaking to this pillow as if it's that person and letting your feelings out, because your feelings, your thoughts, if you don't release something toxic that's inside of you, that creates physical illness.
Mhm.
And, you know, nobody wants that. We don't want it to get to that stage. So we need to release everything. And then come from a place of love and understanding and forgiveness, because we're all human. Like we've all, you know, lost our temper with someone. None of us is perfect. You know, the most loving parent still is not a perfect parent. And I think we can all admit that. And find a way to forgive the people who wounded us. Because actually, these are contracts we have with our soul family. You know, for example, I had a very profound healing that involved my soul family recently, where it was really amazing. It just had, there were so many threads to so many parts of my life that I had no idea, even with all the conscious work I do every single day on myself, I did not know some of these things were connected.
Wow.
And it was really incredible. And I could just see this contract that I had with one of my early caregivers who was having an experience with me in which her wounds were coming to the surface. And she was speaking to me as she had been spoken to, because I was this innocent, you know, beautiful, bubbly, I was full of light and life. And she was in an unhappy place and just could not take all that light and happiness. So she wanted to dampen that. And when I was working on this recently, I could just see the contract I had with her, where I was just like, okay, I'm going to show up for this so that you can do this. And then that is going to catalyze my healing journey, which really, it was the root of a lot of healing that I needed over the years. And when I got that final piece, I could just feel the ripple effect rippling to my children, to other relationships. Like my sister and I, we have kind of a dodgy relationship, and I never felt like I could really make progress with it. And I know she's had the same frustration. Like she wants to be close to me, but there's just something there. And it was related to this too, because what had happened to me had happened to her, and she had turned around, kind of done the same thing that our mother had done, in my perception of it anyway. And so I texted her this morning when I felt this wave through our soul family. And I was like, I'm having this healing, and I don't even usually talk to her on those terms. And she was having exactly the same experience. She was like, yes, I'm feeling this healing. Like I got the word family this morning. And I was like, yeah, totally. Like we just did something huge.
Yeah.
And it touches everyone in your soul group when you do that really deep work.
That's amazing, Angela. Isn't it just, we're so limitless and we have so much
Yeah.
capacity to not just set ourselves free, but like you say, walk in these large webs of relationships with people that we're traveling with. Angela,
Yeah.
I know that you have studied with some just incredible teachers and that you teach workshops and you do one-on-one work. So I'm curious if you might just tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and how they can learn more about you.
Sure. My website is seichicoaching.com. And soon I'm going to have a couple of podcasts also. There's information about that on the website. And yeah, anybody can reach out to me through my website. If they want to have a free consultation, that's no problem at all. It's an honor for me to be able to walk with people on their healing journey. I'm just a facilitator. They are the true healer. And it's a beautiful situation, and I love being able to be someone's cheerleader and to be someone who can provide that kind of energy to help them get over that hump that's keeping them held back, that's keeping obstructions in their life to the future they want, the affluence they want, the relationships that they would like to have. Because all of that energy just opens up when you do this kind of work.
Yeah, and Angela, thank you so much for being available for everyone. Thank you for spending this time with me. And thank you also for not just participating in the healing of the individuals that you work with, but that great web that you were referring to, the soul web. And I think your work is so extraordinary, and it's been such a pleasure to spend a little time talking with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.